Something else I want to talk about is the issue of language. Your local language, vernacular, your language of birth, the language you speak, spoken by your parents, the language of your tribe, of your ethnic group. Recently, there have been some videos that I saw that brought this back to my mind. It's an issue that I think it's important that we look at. Now, the videos in question, there is this Chinenye, an 18-year-old girl in Anambra State, who left the residence of the aunt. She was living with the dad's sister, with her aunt, and she had problems at home. The aunt had some issues with her and some other persons, and so she was forced to leave the house. And so she was just out there when a good Samaritan, one Kamsulo Shuku, was told about this girl that was just out by herself in the street. And so he went to her to try to find out what the problem was. Now he made a video interviewing Chinenye, and the video has gone viral and it is in the social media. When he started, they are Igbos. When he started the interview, he initially intended conducting it in Igbo, So, but the young lady, Chinenye, said that she can't speak Igbo very well. And so the man now resorted to speaking English. And from the conversation, you know that this Chinenye is intelligent. She's in secondary school. She's writing her exams, and she spoke very well. She talked about where the aunt lives, where the residence, her school. She spoke very well in English. It's just that in the initial part of the interview, she said that she couldn't speak Igbo. So, and what she said with English was quite pathetic. That she doesn't know the mom, the dad, she doesn't know her mom, the dad is married to another woman, the dad is in Lagos, she is in Anambra with the aunt. And so, the aunt that she's living with, that she doesn't have a phone, she doesn't have a way of communicating with the dad, that things have been difficult and she's out of the house, So, and it was quite pathetic seeing this young lady whose dad is far away and the aunt, not treating her well, and she has to leave the house and stuff. It was quite a pathetic story, and it has generated a lot of sympathy, people making donations to assist her and stuff like that. But the point of that video that I want to bring out was that initial part where she said she cannot speak Igbo. And so if you look at the commentary, the video was posted on Facebook and other social media platforms. If you look at the commentary, you see a number of people saying, you cannot speak Igbo, you cannot speak your local language, you cannot speak vernacular. How can you be living in the East? She's in Anambra State and you cannot speak Igbo. And people were just trying to criticize her, chastise her for that on the commentary. Later, if you follow what's the event subsequently, you will note that she was at a point she was in Port Harcourt living with one of her aunts. Then later she went to Jos. Later, they took her to Anambra to live with another of her aunts. She has been moving between homes. She wasn't really initially in the East, so she didn't really, in her formative years, in her younger age, she wasn't really in an environment where they were speaking a lot of Igbo. She likely grew up where they spoke more of English. And that was the language she was familiar with, and that was the language she spoke. In spite of the fact that the video was very sad and pathetic and very emotional and moving, people could not move. There are a lot of people that could not move past the fact that she could not speak the local language, the language of the region, and people got offended by it. Then there's another video. This one is of Erica of Big Brother Naija fame. Erica. So Erica, there was this video that was she was in a dinner setting with other people, and so someone was trying to converse with her in Igbo, and she seemed not to know those words very well. If you watch her other videos, you know that she knows some of the basics, but she's not very deep into Igbo, knowing the language like that. And so those words that were said by the person, she couldn't really pronounce them well. And so as she was making effort to pronounce it, and as the person was trying to teach her, you can see her smiling, trying to laugh, and all of that. When somebody is trying to say something in a language and he's not saying it very well, it can be like a joke, it can be humorous, and people laugh, So people took offense with the fact that she couldn't really speak the Igbo, and she was laughing. And someone said, is it a flex if you cannot speak your language? And so she was criticized. So somebody posted the video on Twitter, on X. And if you follow the commentary, there are a lot of people that were blasting Erica, that you cannot speak your language, you are this, you are that, and all that. And she really took offense with that. She now wrote that, why don't our people, that they always take offense at this and stuff. She really took offense, and she really went on the offensive, trying to, say that this is not fair and stuff like that, So those things. Then I have one experience where there is a doctor in another region, in the north. So he saw a patient who is from his tribe, and just concluded that this patient could speak his language, and the patient couldn't. And this doctor was now like blasting the patient that, you can't speak your language, you're this, you're that, with that tenure of, you are a failure or something, it's disgraceful, it's shameful for you not to be able to speak your language and stuff like that. It was such a visceral reaction. So now, we all know that to speak a language, a lot of things go into it, into your ability. For you to be able to speak a language, there are a lot of factors to that. And not everyone can speak their language of birth, the language of their parents. Not everyone can do that. We all know that, right? But there's this, and one other thing is that it is good if you can speak your language. It is good. There's nothing wrong in speaking your language. There's nothing wrong in speaking vernacular. And studies have shown that if somebody is bilingual, the person can speak more than one language, can speak two languages, or you are trilingual, you can speak 3 languages, or you are a polyglot, you can speak 4 languages or more, that it helps the brain. The brain, the interconnectivity of the brain and the way the brain is structured is such that if you can speak more than one language, it helps the brain to work better. So it's a good thing if you can speak your vernacular, your local language, you can speak English and speak some other language. It's a good thing. No one argues with that. that someone can speak his language of birth is something good. Nobody argues with that. But we also know there is a fact that not everyone can speak their language of birth. Not everyone grew up in a household where they speak their language of birth or the language of their parents. Not everyone grew up in a region where they speak the language. So some people inevitably will not be able to speak the language well. And then this visceral reaction, when you see somebody that is of the same tribe as you and the person cannot speak your language and you just get so offended by it and you just decide to now criticize and abuse the person for not being able to speak the language, I think that part is what I take issue with. Yes, if someone can't speak your language and the person of the same tribe, you can say, you learn the language now, it's not difficult and all that, you can tell that. But for you to now get so worked up that the person cannot speak your language, is the essence of criticizing and abusing the person. I think that is wrong. Because we know that the language you speak is not necessarily a criteria of how successful you are going to be. It's not. There are other factors that play into how successful somebody will be. So, looking at someone that cannot speak your local language and looking at the person as a failure, as an outcast, as somebody who should be ashamed of himself or herself and all of that, I think that is wrong. Because I always use this. If you go to the prisons, you see all these hardened criminals that are in prison, not the ones that are innocent. You see hardened criminals in the prisons. They speak the local language. You see all these criminals that are operating and committing a lot of crimes. They speak their local language. You see all these people that are engaged in one criminality or even people in high places that are engaged in one form of corruption and do all sorts of manner of ill and all that. They speak their local language. So the fact that they can speak their local language, does it make them better than other people who can't? It doesn't. Does it make them not to be less corrupt or less, make them more humane because they can speak? It doesn't. If you see somebody that is kind, somebody that is generous, it's not because the person can speak the local language. It's not because of the local language, that's why the person is kind, that's why the person is generous. No. We're not saying it's not good to speak your local language, but it's not the only criteria for you to judge somebody's status and now start to demean and talk down on the person because the person cannot speak the language.